Since Yates has always said, if the stress is to come up here to the dojo and do kata, and I didn't have time to do that. And that's all going to change here pretty quick. But Friday, I pretty much made up my mind that she was going to go home, and I was going to go back to work on Monday, and that we were going to call it quits. We were going to bring everything. We were going to bring everything in out of the field, all of our cameras, all of our traps we had set out, just return everything, the property to everyone that had loaned us things, and we were going to leave. And so after that happened, we decided on Sunday morning that we were going to go get some coffee at Timmy Hortons, I call it. And we were sitting there having breakfast, and I'd taken a couple bites out of my sandwich, and she had had her coffee, and I think I drank my orange juice. Yeah, just my orange juice, because I got chocolate milk. I got a chocolate milk that ended up getting wasted in the car. And my dispatcher texted me, and she said, "Hey, we got units going on the way to I-71 on a possible sighting." And I'm thinking, yeah. Just another coyote, because we had a coyote call out there the night before. And but then all of a sudden we were sitting there and we were waiting for more information, and my phone just started blowing up, and it just was more information. I got more sheriff's deputy units going. I got my police units are going. Now it's on Facebook, and all the people with scanners that were driving around out there on their phones, they could hear the traffic. And so Jordan and I picked up everything real quick, threw it in the truck, and we took off just as fast as we could. See, throw it. So we got down there just as fast as we could, as fast as we've gotten to any sighting. And when we got there, there he was. I couldn't really see him too clear, but Victor Wright, the deputy down there, called me on the phone and cell phone, and he said, "Jerry, I'm telling you, this is Karson. You guys need to get down here. I know it's him." We got down there. I start walking across the field. He sees other people moving, and he starts walking away. And so we just devised a real quick plan, and we were going to get into the field somehow and try and catch him. Started out with a bite sleeve. I got out of the truck, and he didn't want to play with me very much. And so I told my sergeant that was in the truck just to chase him and just keep chasing him until he couldn't stop chasing him anymore, until Karson just dropped. And that's what he did until finally Karson just gave up and quit. I snuck up behind him, told him to load up in the truck, and he jumped up in the truck, and that was it. It was all over. We had him. And that took 2 months. He's gained about 6 pounds back probably. I haven't weighed him in 2 days, but he had gained almost 6 pounds. He lost 14 pounds while he was out in the field. And all of his blood work and everything came back perfect. It's just like he left the house. He doesn't have anything wrong with him whatsoever.
Wow.
And he's just fine. And so we're leaving here in a few hours. Probably by 5 o'clock we're leaving to go to Indiana and start our training again for just a week, just a refresher training. And he's fine. He's going to be going back to work next week. Yes, sir.
Officer Popp, do you have any general idea about how much space and land acres that he covered?
Well, we know that between Greene County and Greene County and Clinton County, the two counties combined are 828 square miles in size. He covered approximately 200 miles of that.
Wow.
Yeah. From the tracking that we did on the map, Jordan put it all together for the chief. For the tracking that we did with the confirmed sightings that we had with her dogs that detect odor of Karson, he traveled back and forth from using a river that connects all the way from Caesars Creek all the way up to Springfield. He ran that river and the bike trail that runs parallel to 42 from Corwin, we know Corwin, all the way up past Xenia, and then the bike trail that breaks off. There's a Little Miami Scenic that runs between Spring Valley, Corwin, and Xenia. Then there's the other one, the Jamestown. The Jamestown bike trail that goes all the way out to Jamestown. He got on that for a very short period of time. We tracked him out towards New Jasper, and then he started coming back towards Xenia again. This was his home, and he was smelling something here. He was trying to get home somehow, some way. And so yeah, overall, between the sightings, we know he was around 200 miles.
Wow.
So, yes, ma'am.
Can you give me an approximate distance between where you found him and your home?
8 miles.
8
Is that what
miles.
we figured?
It's pretty much, as the crow flies, smack dab between where he went, missing the point of escape and the home and here. He
That
had
was-
just started to get a little further south and a little further south in the past couple weeks.
It was more than 8 miles, so if you figure where State Route 134 is on 71 to Xenia, I don't know how far that is. I'd say it's probably a 20-minute drive.
Yeah, it's about
Wow.
20 minutes.
So probably 18, 19 miles maybe. So, yeah,
My road there is 17 miles plus.
right. So
Big here.
it was a long way. You know,
Is that
from
the first time that you had actually seen them, or had you gotten a glimpse of them?
Darren and I saw him the next day. We got a call of him over at the intersection of Center Road and Lewis Road in Clinton County. And Darren and I actually Darren saw him first. As we were driving, Darren looked up over the ridge because we had several police officers going out that way. Darren saw him out the window and said, "There he is, Dad, stop, stop, stop." And I jumped out and I saw him. And before we even had a chance to get out of the car and around the car to head up towards the field, he had gone over the ridge. And as we were running up through this muddy field, which was not easy to do because it had really, really rained that day, that was before that, and we lost sight of him and he was gone. He took off across the field between some trees. We got out there on gators, we had ATVs. I think the next night we were out there with OSP, who had brought their helicopter out, and they were using infrared and night vision and trying to get some heat radiated from the area, and the FLIR is what they call it, and we weren't able to see him. Found a lot of rabbits, a lot of squirrels, but well, we brought that was the only time that we brought OSP out with their FLIR, their night observation, and we had a helicopter one other time from Butler County came out down there on Roxanne and New Burlington Road, and they weren't able to see anything either. I think by that time he had already moved himself up towards Xenia that fast, because once Jordina got here with her dogs, we started tracking with the smallest one, Ruckus, and Ruckus took us from the last confirmed sighting we had at Spring Valley Lake, and then from there, she took us straight across the field, around the lake, where everyone had been out that day, took us around the lake, the path, through 2 or 3 cornfields, and then she emptied us out right onto a bike trail, just south of Roxanne and New Burlington Road, and then we continued to track up to Roxanne and New Burlington Road. So from there, the idea is to jump ahead, instead of just, running 6 or 7 miles with a canine, we drove up there to the next intersection, which was in Spring Valley. And we didn't have any scent or any odor of Karson up there at that time, so we know he did not go that far by that day. The problem with you have to understand with tracking these dogs is, and she can explain it. What's he doing?
He's looking for the next one. Oh, look at he's already chewed it up. Poor Karson. I wish I could get those.
So, the thing you have to understand about how she works with her dogs is that you can't put a timestamp on where, how long ago the dog was there, or when it was there. We just know that the dogs detect the odor, and then we can start tracking from there. Everything came down to the people that are out driving around looking, the sightings. The people that are out there searching in their cars that saw him. When we got a decent sighting of a dog that matched the description, and I still have it on my phone, but what we would do is people would call, they'd call the dispatch and they'd say, "Hey, we saw this dog, it looks just like Karson," and then the dispatcher would send me their phone number. I would in turn call those people on the phone and start asking them questions on the phone about what did the dog look like. And I wasn't trying to give them too many leading questions. I'd say, just tell me what the dog looked like. Well, then they'd start telling me things like, well, he had a big bushy tail and he had a brown and white face and he was black all over. I could kind of ascertain at that point, okay, it's not our dog. But what we would do is we would send them what was called a photo ID card that had, I think, 7 pictures of animals on there that ranged from Jordina's German Shepherd that she used to have, Karson, and several other animals. We had a coyote, a wolf, things like that, and we were putting them on there. And then people would pick, if they picked number 5 and number 7, which was our Belgian Malinois, then we had a pretty good call. We'd go out there, we'd sniff the area with her canines to confirm whether or not we had good odor. And once that happened, we could start tracking him on a map from there and try to get ahead of him. The whole idea was for me to get ahead of him so that he would see me and respond with a tennis ball. But after so long being out in the field, he stops looking for me. He stops looking to try to find me. He goes into survival mode, and now he's out looking for prey. He's just trying to survive. How long that took and at what point he switched into that mode, I'll never have any idea. But I'd say for probably the first 2 weeks, he was looking for me.
Yeah, because the tennis ball in the field and everything.
Right. Oh yeah, because we had a tennis ball in the field. And that's a story I haven't told. We, if you guys know where Bellbrook Avenue here is in Xenia, where the Super Value Warehouse is, and then the storage shelter. Right next to the storage shelter, on the other side of the bypass going north, there's a field out there. And one day we were just randomly going through there. I forget even what we were out there looking for.
That was the water source that went underneath the bypass.
We actually had a
Like,
sighting.
feet went on,
We had a
yeah.
sighting of a dog out on the bypass, a guy going to church that morning. It was on a Sunday. So we went walking through the field and realized that this could be an area for him to cross. Jordina's walking through the field and she looks down and she sees an old raggedy tennis ball laying in the field that had probably been buried. I mean, in the middle of a cornfield of all places, there's only one tennis ball and it's just laying there. There's no way it could have gotten there, you know, like somebody threw it out of a window, out of the bridge. It was right in the middle of the field between two sets of trees. So we took that tennis ball and she does it's scent detection, basically. It's with gauze pads. She'll take something that belonged to Karson, she'll rub it with gauze pads, real strong, get his odor on the gauze pads, put the gauze pads in a Ziploc bag along with the article, and then she uses that as a scent article. She keeps it in her pocket. Wherever we go, if we get a location or a possible sighting of Karson, she uses that scent to give to her dogs, weighs it in front of their nose. If they didn't get any detection of what they do is they circle around first. Okay, she'll say circle, and the dog will go around in a circle pattern. And it's sniffing the area. It works just the opposite of the way Karson works. The dogs go out there and they circle around and they try to detect odor and they smell everything in the area. And then she stops them, checks them, says, "Are you ready?" And she'll take the gauze pads out, put them in front of their nose, and if the dog sits, which is the opposite of what Karson does when he alerts to something, if her dogs sit, that means negative, there's no scent, he's never been here. But if they smell the odor and the dogs take off tracking towards a particular area, they're tracking Karson. They're on their way. They're trying to find him. That means he was there. The tennis ball. We found the tennis ball. She puts it in a Ziploc bag, so we wanted to do a test. We took the tennis ball and her 4 dogs up to an elementary school in Xenia where Karson had never been. He had never trained, nothing. She took the tennis ball out, waved it in front of all 4 of the dogs that she had, and all 4 of them sat negative. Karson had never been here, which we knew that because he'd never trained there. There's no reason for his odor to be there. We took her dogs back to the field across the street from an apartment complex where Karson trains. He poops, he pees, that's where he goes, that's his place where he goes. All 4 of her dogs took off tracking after they smelled the tennis ball because it had his odor on it. One of the dogs, Ruckus, the smartest one of the bunch, I think, in my opinion. She truly is the love of my life. Ruckus tracked not only down the street, but across the street to the daycare where I live, where he also hangs out, and she tracked all the way to our house, sniffed the foundation of my house, and then she went to the garage door where the very last place Karson ever was when I took him to the vet in my cruiser. She stopped in front of the garage door and sat, which let us know that
End of the trail.
that was the end of the trail. That was the last place where Karson had been before he left. And so it's pretty amazing to watch how her dogs work. And we used those dogs for 2 months. And they eventually led us to Karson. Had Jordan not been there that day, you know, just to give me some simple advice on how to capture him and what we needed to do. Part of that kind of went bad real quick, and she was getting ready to get into her truck and start chasing Karson too, because at that point we were kind of out of options on how we were going to catch him. We knew if we let him get out of that field, he was going to be gone again, or if he crossed the highway, you know, he was going to be in danger. So essentially we just said we're just going to run him into the ground until he just couldn't run anymore. And he laid down and he quit. So that's what brings us here today. Yeah, I didn't have a Christmas. I forgot that Christmas, that whole day. I didn't even know it was Christmas Day until somebody called me at 11 o'clock in the evening while I was still out in Clinton County searching and said, "Hey, Merry Christmas." I had forgotten. I forgot it was Christmas. So
We worked through New Year's.
we worked through New Year's.
About New Year's.
Yeah, the only thing we did not work through The only thing we did not work through was the Ohio State game. Yeah, we were, truth be told, we were at Nick's restaurant watching the game when the Ohio State Buckeyes won the national championship, and I was pretty happy about that. So that's the only night that we didn't work. I think we still had grill. We had something cooking on the grill, but
Yeah, we had to go let a cat out after, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, we had to go let a cat out. So we caught a lot of cats. We caught a lot of raccoons. We caught what else did we catch? We did, anytime skunks would start, see our cameras that we had, like, you guys out there, especially Mike, he's familiar with this stuff. Some of the trail cams that we use only took pictures to an SD card that are built into the camera. The other cameras we used, they take photographs and they send them to our cell phones. So our cell phones were ringing off the hook with pictures of animals that we had taken from that camera. And so when we started seeing the skunks starting to float around our cameras, fortunately we never trapped one, but we would run out real quick and set the traps open so that we didn't have to trap a skunk, because there was no way we would be able to let that out.
I would have been the one doing it.
Yeah, because she was the one that had the phone most of the time with the cameras that went to her, the pictures that went to her camera, and so she had to get up in the middle of the night because I didn't have that, and then she'd call me later in the morning and say, hey, I got up twice last night to go let something out, or bless her little heart.
Hey, did you get any pictures of Donnie and Rocky?
Yeah, lots. Yeah, we had, oh God, squirrels, raccoons, possum, fox, coyote.
At least the cats don't come back.
Yeah, the cats, lots of cats. The cats, once you catch a cat and you let it out of the cage, it will not come back. It is scared to death. It'll never come back to that place again. But we caught a lot of animals. We almost caught a dog. We had a lady that kept bringing her dog out to a certain area, and I told her once, I said, do me a favor, I said, don't let your dog run out here free. We got food out there and there's a trap and it's going to get caught. And she kept letting it out there, and finally we were like, okay, we really hope this dog gets caught. We really hope he gets caught. We'll take our time getting there. And but we also, along our journeys, we found several other dogs that I guess you could say we kind of rescued, got back to their owners, because we went on a lot of dog calls. And then we found Goliath. We got a call one day. Goliath was a big Great Dane that went missing the same day as Karson. And we got a call from a landowner that said, hey, Officer Popp, he said, I don't know if this is your dog or not, but can you come out and take a look at it? He said, it's a pretty big dog, he said, but it's not alive anymore. And they had been showing their house to some potential buyers of their home. They were out walking on the property and found Goliath. So Jordan and I went out there, and we found the dog, and we located the owner. I contacted her, and they came out and they retrieved Goliath. So we were able to bring closure to her and her dog. She was in Maryland, and her dad came out and got the dog. And we're ready for ball number 3 here. So. Is there any more out here? Les.
This is why you weren't worried about getting fired.
So, I mean, there's just so many stories I can tell, but I could go on for hours, and I mean, it's just, I don't want to do that, but it's just been so much that's happened. The biggest thing has been just the support that we've had from everyone, just the outpouring of support on Facebook, the food cards, the letters. I've received letters and cards from all over the country, as far away as California. We've got a lady out there, her name's Rita Grable, that she would send money every week. She sent tennis balls, cards, sent me a Valentine's Day card. Just a wonderful lady out there in California. I had a lady, I'm not sure where she was from, but she went to Beaver Creek, and she would stop at a couple of restaurants in Beaver Creek. And she said that every time she stopped at a restaurant in Beaver Creek, she was going to write a check. Well, she stopped at 2 restaurants, one at the Golden Corral, and I think there was another restaurant out there on North Fairfield somewhere. She wrote a $50 check for each place that, she went to. I think we raised over $6,000 or $7,000 for Karson that we're putting into a fund for his training equipment, things like that.
Great.
And there's a way that we can budget all that money and use that money for a specific cause. It helps my budget for equipment and training. And for me to go to schools, canine schools on down the road, out of state, because that costs money and it comes out of my budget. I have a $2,000 a year budget at the police department, and sometimes that can go fast, especially if there's an injury or something like that the vet, that comes out of my budget. Right, you know, it doesn't take long for it to just be, you know, completed. But as far as Karson goes, like I said, his health is good. The only thing that he's got a new scar under his left eye. His fur's starting to grow back. He's got a little scar under his left eye. His nose is starting to get a little better, but he was pretty raw on the tip of it where he'd been digging and burrowing. I would assume we're never going to know what he did. And, you know, we know he ate a cat.
Yeah, boy.
2 cats. He ate 2 cats, and he ate moles. Some moles out on Cherry Grove Road out in the county. What was the name of that road? Cherry Grove, and what was the other one that connects to it out there? The moles. The lady that called the next day. Yeah. He was eating moles. Yeah, she watched him for about a half an hour eat moles. And well, we were out at your house probably 6 or 7 times for coyote. You are infested with coyotes. Yeah, you should look both ways when you step out of your house.
My dog, he's got my back.
Yeah, but
Not everybody's afraid of coyotes like you.
yeah, I am scared of coyotes. Yeah, but just.
Daddy says they don't hurt you unless you feel like a little girl.
Yeah, you can scare them away, but I wasn't going to take that chance. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Let's enjoy this because, you know, I hope something like this never happens again to another police officer. I know it has, but you know, he's gained a lot of fame, and which I'm just glad we're here to do it in a positive way instead of something that, you know, we're here for a funeral or something like that. Because that was what we had planned on doing if necessary, if we were ever recovering. But it seems like it's still, for me personally, every time I look at him and I wake up in the morning and he's in his kennel, it still doesn't seem quite real yet. Just because when I think about how long it took for us to find him and where he was and how big of an area we had searched. Man, let me tell you, Greene County and Clinton County, when you get out there going towards Jamestown and out past Jamestown going towards Fayette County, there is nothing out there. We even got one call of a guy called down in Greenfield. His house, we didn't go down there.
He's out in the middle of nowhere.
This guy was in the middle of nowhere. I looked and there wasn't a house within 2 miles of this guy. And I was like, there's no way Karson went all the way down there. Well, he didn't. He didn't go down there. But it is desolate out in Greene County. And I ran through miles and miles, 32 miles maybe? It had to be at least 3 miles that day. Through miles and miles of fields. And then Jordan would yell at me and say, no, come back.
One time.
Yeah.
And it was like a quarter of a mile, and you were panting.
But it was at a full sprint uphill, and it was in 6 inches of snow. So I was pretty tired.
Our training is training to do all the running.
Yeah, she did do all the running.
Standing.
Yeah.
So I get that you're not in very good shape.
But
Oh, she's so long new.
yeah, I know. Well, you know, it's been a while since I've been to the dojo. But I do want to say something about the dojo. I know a lot of you here that came to visit are not here from this area, and you don't know anything about this school. Sensei Yates, you know, the owner and proprietor of Doug Yates Karate, he's been in my life for 33 years. I started doing martial arts when I was 10 years old back in 1981. About 2 months after this guy in the green shirt here. Claypool's my best friend in the world. He's been there for everything. We lost touch from each other for a long time, and he, without a doubt, probably beyond any other human being I've ever met in my life, has the biggest heart of any human being on the planet. And he does stuff like this. He can do stuff like this weekly because he loves doing stuff like this. He puts together all of our parties for Thanksgiving and Halloween, and oh God, our Halloween bashes are just awesome. You know, he's been in my life for years, and he called me every day. And I remember that night, probably a week after Karson went missing, he called me up on the phone, and I'm going to tell on you. And Well, actually, I didn't get a call from Bill. I got a call from, trying to think who was that. Somebody called me or sent me a Facebook message from the dojo and said, hey, have you gotten a hold of Bill? I just heard, oh, it was Josh Long, commissioner. He texted me and he said, hey, I just listened on my scanner that the police are trying to get a hold of Bill's dad over at his house. And I said, no, I don't know what's going on. Something about your mom has been in the hospital. I've been out of the loop for a week. So I immediately called Bill, and I said, Bill, Josh Long tells me that the Xenia police is knocking over at your dad's house trying to get a hold of you. It's about your mom at the hospital. And I was exhausted. I had like 1 hour of sleep. And I get a call. I called Bill, and he said, okay, I'm gonna call. And he called me back up on the phone, and he was crying. He was upset. I was crying. I was like, man, tell me what's going on. He was like, I don't think mom's gonna make it through the night. And he went to the hospital. I was just so tired. I knew it wasn't safe for me to drive. I said, just keep with me. So I got up. I cranked down a Mountain Dew in my refrigerator so that I could stay awake for a while. And I think Jordina had already gone to bed, and you were at the hotel, you were asleep. And so I stayed up most of the night, and Bill called me like 3 or 4 hours later and told me that Mom was still doing okay. And then she just progressively got better and better and better. But that was a real tough night. That was a really, really bad night. Tim Wilson. Tim's there all the time. That's dad number 2.
And likewise.
Yeah.
My son.
Yeah. For this kid right here. This is my other kid. These two are attached to the hip. And Tim always took care of Darren while I was gone. He's going to do that for the next week while I'm gone. But I love you guys. I do. Leroy, you and your wife, Jody, you guys are always there. Just so many people, that have called me from the karate school, because you have to understand, people ask me all the time, man, Jerry, how did you do it for 2 months? You were out there working every day, and you didn't sleep, and we didn't eat a whole lot, and Jordana, look at her, she doesn't eat anyway. But we didn't eat a whole lot, and we didn't sleep, and we were living out of that car of hers most of the time, and it was tough. And sometimes we had to give up food to run to a sighting that someone had called. And people say, how did you do it? How did you stay motivated to do it? And I said, at the time, I just kept going and just kept going and kept going, and then I realized after 33 years that this is the place where it all started. Back when I was 10 years old, on November the 11th of 1981, I started karate at Doug Yates. Doug knows that better than I do. He remembers the date. He remembers all the dates. Yeah, and Bill, I think, Bill, you started in September of 81, and that was tough. Our kids that train here at karate, they go through a lot of abuse, and it's tough, and but they get through it. But I remember back in the day, it was a lot tougher, because all of the instructors that we had, they were either full contact fighters, they were training to be full contact fighters, they were coaches for fighters, so that's all they wanted to do was just beat up on our students. And when you're an orange belt or a purple belt, and you got a black belt that just wants to beat up on you in sparring, there's Sensei Yates. And I'll tell them about the old days, Sensei. And our training was a lot tougher. We would come to class and we'd warm up and we'd do our basic techniques, and that built up our drive, and that built up our dedication to the martial arts. And then Sensei Yates would say, okay, 15 minutes into class, we just barely stretched out and built up a sweat. He's like, hey, get your pads on. And then it was like the black belts get to beat up on us, because that's what they did. Because Sensei Yates might have had a full contact fight the next weekend or something, and he couldn't beat us all the way up, but he'd point spar with us. And I'll never forget the time that I'll never forget the time I got kicked in the stomach and I got all the wind knocked out of me, and he's picking me up by my belt off the floor laughing. He did the same thing to Claypool one time. He
All
told
that free air out there and you can't have any.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just the way it was. And, you know, that's where I learned, that's where I started at 10 years old to learn my determination and my drive just to keep moving forward and don't let anybody tell you you can't do something. You know, because 4 years later, I got my first degree black belt. And, you know, we tell our kids, don't give up. Just because you're a brown belt, don't stop. Just because you're a black belt, don't stop. Because once you put that black belt on, really all you've done is just put your white belt back on again, and you're learning all over and starting all over again. You know, really your black belt is just your first white belt, all over again. And that's where it all started. It all started right here at Doug Yates Karate 33 years ago. I would say without Doug Yates, you know, who I've known my whole life, without, fine, he'll eat that too. That's his second love is water bottles. But without Sensei Yates and 33 years of, you know, his training and his calls, I mean, his belief in God, you know, I have never been one to go around and preach anything about God or religion. Sensei Yates knows that, but he'll always call me and tell me, you know, you got to keep the faith. You know, you have to believe in God. You have to believe in some kind of higher power. And I can't help but to believe that this last Sunday, when we were ready to pack it up and go home, that something happened out in that cornfield out there on Starbuck Road. I can't explain it because we didn't have any other luck for 2 months until I was ready to shut down and quit. I was going to try to keep going on as much as I possibly could with some calls, but I was ready to pack it in. And then all of a sudden, I get that one text message, and there he is standing out there in the field. So I can't put my finger on it, but I got to believe in a higher power somehow. The fact that whatever that higher power was, if it was God, that's fine. That kept him alive for so long. That kept him in perfect health, except for his weight. That was able to let him go out there and survive. Then I can't say that. The only other thing I can say is that you know, I put that in God's hand for the last 2 months.
Amen.
And it's been a long journey. I'm glad everybody came out today. I'm so glad for you that came out the other night on Friday. And you know, we'll set it up now for anybody that wants to, you know, come up with that Karson. Because unfortunately I can stay for a while, but I can't stay probably past 5 because I got to get to Indiana for training and get everything back on track. For those of you that have been on Facebook Steadfast, contacting me, messaging me, please give me a couple days to catch up on all those. I read every message. I get personal messages all the time. Becky, she blows up my phone all day long. Becky's my questionnaire.